Good afternoon, everyone. From the shadows of Chicago, with Zaid, Meltzer here with his mentor, Blaine Bartlett. Learn.blainebartlett.com/LMM. Mastermind mentor himself. Blaine, how are you doing?
Hey, I'm doing really well today. It's been a great day so far. Life is good.
Life is great and God is good. I have my friend Darrin. He is here with us. Darrin's the head of commercial operations at Mission Bio. And Mission Bio, to me, is fascinating because, as you know, I'm working with quantum memories and energetic and genetic inheritance. And he actually is using science, not just philosophy or theory, in order to effectuate healing. And you know, it's the cutting edge of therapy. Darrin, how'd you get involved in this space, first of all?
Yeah, so it's funny, I've most of my career, I've been on the diagnostic side of the business, really bringing, new treatments and therapies to patients. And I think, when I saw this opportunity at Mission Bio, it's a much more technical space.
Yeah.
And an area that I think, will really revolutionize treatment for patients, particularly, folks with cancer, and then also in areas like cell and gene therapy.
Beautiful.
Yeah. The idea of gene therapy, I mean, that's just fascinating what can be done with that today. And, from CRISPR all the way through. How is your platform set up to actually leverage that?
Yeah, so it's actually a new area that we're focusing on, but I think it's got a lot of promise. Many of the medications that are developed, which are essentially, gene cells that are, put into patients, need to be really classified. And our technology has the ability to actually look at tens of thousands of cells, all simultaneously, and all with individual results. So we're able to look at the contents of the cell from a DNA and protein standpoint to really get the highest resolution of what's available. And that really helps with developing gene therapies and really ensuring that the right therapy and the right genes have been altered are really the most important piece.
And is it through a specific visualization that allows you to do single cell technology where, I mean, it's so minute in the aspect of trying to isolate a single cell. What were the technological advancements that allow us to have that type of therapy and technology?
Yeah, it's really based off of what's called microfluidic droplets. And so what happens is we'll actually, encapsulate a cell inside of a droplet, and then there's, reagents and barcodes and things that are added there, which then those barcodes allow you to trace back that individual cell once you're done with the experiment. And so, you can look back and see, cell A has, these 5 mutations, cell B has these 10 mutations, and so on. And it does it for literally tens of thousands of cells.
So, working with both the genotype and the phenotype, we've got protein markers that kind of come in. I mean, this is I love this stuff. It is so unbelievably complex. And it literally is the building block of what stands before us. I mean, not just human beings, but you take any organic structure around in the universe, and we've got this going on. What is if you had a magic wand and you could wave it, and this thing was absolutely adopted and was just cooking with gas, so to speak, without polluting the environment, of course, being socially correct here. What are you going to make? What's the possibilities that this technology actually unleashes?
Yeah, well, I think that when we think about getting to single cell resolution, when you have a diagnosis of cancer, and as an example, cancer starts as a single mutation in a single cell, right? Mm-hmm. And then obviously that expands, and by the time we detect it with conventional diagnostics, it's typically too late, and that's why there's been lots of other assays that have been coming out for early detection. I think our platform really has the ability to look at those individual cells earlier, and at higher resolution. So some of the areas that we're looking to explore is really getting into the treatment aspect and the clinical side of the business, really evaluating, hey, how does this technology perhaps provide better detection than current treatments and therapies that are on the market, and I think that allows us to then just have better outcomes for patients. And so if in my mind, that's really the goal of where we want to get this to. And, certainly it doesn't happen overnight, but I think we have a really good trajectory to get there.
Yeah. And in the recidivism, we're trying to think of the word, in cancer, of course, when it comes back, relapse.
Yeah.
And so it's a huge quandary still. Does your Tapestry platform help to, predict or protect against relapse?
So I think that's one of the areas we're really excited about is really looking at how can the platform be used to detect what's called minimal residual disease. And this is essentially, being able to detect these mutations that will actually occur and typically cause that patient to relapse, but you're able to detect them much earlier. And I think, that's an area that we're really excited about. I think that has a lot of application for treating patients, but more importantly, I think really that's going to be a huge advantage for pharma companies, because rather than waiting for the clinical trial to end and looking at specific endpoints like progression-free survival or things like that, they can actually look at a molecular endpoint and say, did we eradicate this clone from this patient? If the answer is yes, great, the drug did its job. And I think that's a really nice thing for pharma, because they can actually get drugs approved faster.
Every cancer is different, and a lot of people don't understand that every cancer is different. It's very specialized. My late wife died from multiple myeloma, and it's called multiple myeloma for a reason. If I'm understanding what you're saying correct here, essentially what down the road can occur is, and I'll just use cancer as the example here, I can have a tailored protocol specific to my genotype that will address the cancer that I'm currently wrestling with. And it can be targeted.
Yeah, what we'd be able to do is look very, very deeply at individual cells across the sample type and determine if any of those cells have that particular mutation. If the answer is yes, then we didn't do a good job of treating it. We need to continue to provide treatment. I think, and that's usually what happens. People will come back with a conventional diagnostic today, and it looks good, but yet there's these, individual cells lurking inside still that are going to go on and mutate and turn into, relapse and ultimately can, cause the patient to pass away.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of people as entrepreneurs don't understand the opportunities that exist within the context of the business side of things, the operations side of things. So I was hoping you could give us a little bit of background on, what a commercial operations executive does within a biomed or a tech company.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, it's interesting. I started my career in sales and kind of moved my way up into various roles. And I think ultimately what we want to do is take the product to market and make sure that it's widely available and understood. And so we focus a lot on sales, on marketing, market access and those different types of areas as well. But ultimately, it's I would say an educational process for customers to understand what the platform can do. And that's really what, I think about from a commercialization standpoint. And it's funny, I've been doing this a long time, and, various startups throughout my career. This is probably the most exciting technology that I've seen since I've, kind of entered the space, too long ago.
Yeah. Well, you've still got hair, though.
Barely.
Yeah. Oncology. This is more than just an oncological treatment, I'm assuming. It's broad spectrum, in a lot of ways here. So what are some of the other areas that you're targeting, number one? And number two, now this is kind of interesting because the veterinarian market is enormous. And I mention this for a very specific reason, just from a commercialization aspect. Are you looking at any ways that this could be moved into that market sector to target some very specific canine cancers, or some bovine, or any some other things that might be going on that again, you kind of get back into the genome and the phenome structures here that are unique to farm animals or commercial animals.
It's interesting. We haven't approached that area. I think there's still, a lot of work to be done, obviously on the human side still. And so, our big areas though are blood cancers, right? Heme malignancies, solid tumor, and then cell and gene therapy. And if you think about all of those are really the areas where the DNA will change, right? If there's some type of mutation or there's some type of edit, that's really what this platform has the ability to do. Now, I will say, I also do some work with a company called IndieBio. We're a biotech incubator, and I've seen a number of those companies come through on on the veterinary side to really look at how do you take current cancer assays and move them into the vet clinic. And I think there's a lot of opportunity for that. Honestly, it's probably a lot easier because you don't have to deal with commercial payers, right? Of who reimburses. Right. It's really, it's a direct patient pay assay, and there's a lot of opportunity there.
And approvals are a lot easier too. You don't have to run through the FDA gauntlet.
Yeah.
And Darrin, looking at the technology itself and what it does, it seems to me that there is a possibility, or if not a probability, of this type of technology curing all cancer, right? It's just a matter of math and science to be able to identify and understanding the signal resistance, the predictive nature of what you're doing, that eventually we should be able to cure cancer. Do you think it will be possible in our lifetimes that cancer will be a curable disease? And if so, on your technological timeline, how quickly do you think we'll see, as I can see from the technology, major statistical improvement on survivability of cancer?
Yeah, I think single cell will take us a lot further along in being able to detect cancers earlier, et cetera. And I think using the cure word is always a really challenging kind of statement, because I think no one's been able to do that to date, and I think there's a lot of headwinds still on there. But what I will say is, I think we'll see in our lifetime cancer become, at least certain types of cancers, a much more manageable disease. Like I think about how HIV has become a much more manageable disease for patients. Similar type of approach I think we'll see with various cancers, because we can monitor those cancerous clones, and then we can give the right treatments for patients to make sure that they keep those mutations at bay and live a much more prosperous and longer life. And I think we've seen that in some of the other settings, like early on with Gleevec, right? That was a real game changer for patients. And so those are some of the things that I think we'll start to get to.
Which gives it.
And I would imagine, as a consequence of some of this too, quality of life through treatment, through the treatment gauntlet begins to improve, because it's so targeted. Yeah. And rather than a shotgun, you've actually got a very specific laser focus with this now.
Yeah, I think that's absolutely correct.
Yeah, a lot less collateral damage. Well, talk about a significant solution. Missionbio.com. Darrin, congratulations on all the success, and we thank you so much. These are game changers for the most important thing in our lives, which is health. I always say, if you're healthy, you get as many wishes as you want. If you're not healthy, you only have one wish. I think a lot of people are wishing for Mission Bio to be successful. So thanks for joining us, and come back and keep us up to date.
Definitely will. Thank you guys very much. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Bet. Thank you for being here, Darrin. Great.
Bye-bye. All right. Man, that was super powerful.
I love stuff that's on the cutting edge.
A little bit above our pay grade. It was a little bit above our pay grade for a while, but very powerful. I was like,
it's
whoa.
Good. I mean, this is game-changing stuff. I mean, this is a great time to be alive. I mean, it really is. There's so much going on from a tech perspective, and as an entrepreneur, there's so much that can be leveraged commercializing things in a compassionate way. I mean, the idea, and this is why I asked the question of Darrin about quality of life through the care gauntlet. If we can minimize unintended consequences, that's a big deal.
Yeah, no, it inspires me when you say things like that this is a great time to be alive, because I appreciate and respect your knowledge of the journey that we both have experienced, but to see your perspective of this is a great time to be alive, that gives me even more enthusiasm towards the future. I would say, you look to the past, you're nowhere. You look to the future, you're now here. Speaking of now here, guess who's now here? Sam Zaid.
Welcome, Sam Zaid,
Executive Chairman of Getaround. Well, thank you for coming on. I now can talk about something that's not above my pay grade, which is great. And another great technology that we're on a great theme today. And obviously, car sharing, transportation has one of the big industries that have shifted and changed beyond our wildest imagination. Give us a little bit of an insight on the car sharing capabilities of Getaround.
Yeah, great. Yeah. So first, thanks for having me on the show, and happy to give some insights. I mean, I think with Getaround, when we looked at car ownership, we just saw something that was really problematic and very wasteful. And that's it. People buy cars. We all buy cars. We park them 95% of the day, and so that's very wasteful. It's very inefficient. Turns out when you do the math, it's actually 30 billion car hours that we're wasting every single day. Cars just parked, not being used.
That's an interesting
Obviously,
statistic.
yeah, a lot of hours and a lot of dollars that are could be put to better use. And so when we thought about that, we said, well, you know, why is that the case? And actually, it turns out that cars are designed, as we all know, they're really designed to be hard to share, right? They're designed to be used by the person who's got the physical key. And as long as you have the physical key, you can get in the car and you can use it, but nobody else can. And so that means those hours where you're not using it are actually hard to share. And so we thought about Getaround. We said, okay, well, look, we really want to do two things to solve this. First, we want to create a marketplace that enables people who have these cars they're not using, to share them, to rent them out to other people who need access to mobility. And then secondly, even if you did that, you still have the challenge of having to get that physical key or coordinating a car pickup or a return. And when you look at the car rental industry, it's a very messy and manual business because of all of these manual logistics. And so we really want to solve that. So we said, well, let's create a marketplace and let's make it truly digital and data driven, so that really all you got to do is, we like to say, if you ever watch that classic Nicolas Cage movie, Gone in 60 Seconds, you can download the app, book a car, be gone in 60 seconds. And you do that all digitally from your phone. You don't have to meet anyone. You don't have to fill out paperwork. You don't have to arrange, how to get the car or return it. It's all, using technology to make that super simple and seamless. And then obviously creating that marketplace that enables individuals and today more and more entrepreneurs to actually start sharing cars and alleviating the need for everybody to buy them.
Amazing.
Yeah. So so that begs the question, how have you done that?
That's a great question.
What, like you mean the technology
going,
or
the
marketplace? Yeah. So through a lot of work and a great team and support of, tremendous, investors who believed in us along the way. But I mean, the way we do it is, we sort of look to the future and we said, well, you look at the computer, like the PC, the laptop, the smartphone, the television, all of these devices have become connected. And as they've become connected, you sort of unleashed this ecosystem of digital services, right? Nobody walks to the store to buy or to rent a movie from Blockbuster anymore, right? You stream that stuff because the television is connected. And so that transformation, incidentally, in the car is happening today, right? The car is becoming connected. The connected car is a real thing. It's, something like 275 million connected cars will ship over the next 5 years. They're really factory equipped with all the technology to enable sharing. And so with that, it becomes actually just a software problem. As long as you plug into the car, you can make it easy for people to share keys digitally, share access digitally, rent out the car. Now, that's not what we did. That is what we're doing, but that's not what we did historically, because 10 years ago when we started the company, that didn't happen. So we felt like, well, we think like the television, like smartphones, that cars will become connected, but let's bootstrap that world. So we actually built our own cloud platform, our own connected cloud platform. We built our own IoT device we call Getaround Connect, which actually goes in any car today, essentially digitizes it so it's fully connected. You can access the car remotely from your phone. You can track it. You can pull off the data. You can, do all the things that are typically done with a paper and clipboard, like how much mileage was driven, how much fuel was used, is there any warning lights on the car, et cetera. So really streaming all that data through that hardware, software platform, Getaround cloud platform that we've built. Mm-hmm. And then that's allowed us to then build this sort of digital and connected marketplace. But more and more, we see this happening natively, with OEMs and car companies who are now, shifting to a world where cars themselves are going to be connected, from the factory.
Yeah. Now you've got what, over 800 million users in, 5 million. 5 million users, 800 different cities. 800 million would be great. But 5 million users, I mean, that's a pretty good, good population.
Yeah, I think we're significantly north of that now, but yeah, that's right. I mean, we've managed to grow over, nicely over the last, uh, handful of years since we really focused on growth as part of our business. We really spent the first number of years focusing on building the technology we just spoke about, and
Yeah.
but there's still a long way to go. I mean, there's still 800 million users, so we've got some percentage of them, and catching slowly up to Facebook, but not quite there yet.
And what are the business model as far as expense go? How do you get your rideshare ownership or participation?
Yeah, so it's pretty straightforward. So if you want to use the service, you can just sign up. There's no fee to join. You can search for a car. You can, you'll search for a car. You can search for as short as an hour. You can search for multiple hours, a few days, or a few weeks. We'll quote you a price. You're always going to see cars that are near you, so either near where you are or where you're looking to be. Insurance is included with every trip. So all this happens through the app, really simply. Your account gets verified, instantly and algorithmically, and then we charge your credit card, and you can walk to the car. So all that happens in 60 seconds. You can walk to the car, pop open the doors magically from your phone, and drive away. So that's the experience, for a consumer who wants to use a car. If you have a car to share, it's similar. You sign up on our website. We get an appointment with a certified technician in our network to equip our technology, which you don't see. It's underneath the dash. It's fully integrated in the vehicle, and then you can start sharing your car. You make money off every booking. We cover insurance. We take a 40% commission off of every transaction. Pricing is completely dynamic. So even if you don't know how to price stuff, we'll price it up at times when there's high demand, or it's peak season, or whatever other. There's a lot of signals that go into the pricing, but whatever signals are indicating how to price. What you've got to do is just make sure your car is maintained and serviced, and available when you say this.
Well, that availability question becomes an interesting one for me, at least. I park my car in my garage. Where would I be parking the car if I was one of your clients?
Yeah, so it's a great question. I assume you have a driveway. I mean, we support driveway parking. Maybe you don't like having your car in your driveway. But we support really 5 types of parking: so driveway, street parking, garage, surface lot, or valet. And that just depends on the individual. Some people have, like you, that might be parked on a driveway. Others might have multiple cars and have a mix of different parking configurations.
That's amazing. And then on the maintenance side, I'm always curious, even with other similar, but obviously no one has the same, but similar. How, when you're utilizing your personal car, do you keep up with the maintenance side of it? Because it would seem to be a benefit to try to shade, if I'm the owner of the car, to spend less money in maintenance. How do you make sure that they're well maintained?
Yeah, you'd think you could skimp, but in reality, because there's a feedback system, and that feedback system will affect pricing and ranking of your car in search results, you're actually incentivized to steer towards higher quality of service versus lower quality. That's obviously by design. That's what we want. And and maintenance is something that as everyone knows who owns a car, it's time and effort. And so if your car's getting utilized more, you have to put in a little bit more time and effort. Now, for a lot of people, that's an opportunity because they're making money, and they either get their car for free, or they've got more than one car and they're starting to make some supplemental income, and so that time is certainly paying for itself and then some. But and the other part for us is, as we've been building our digital marketplace, we fully see a day soon where you could also, through Getaround, call up a mechanic or a service center to actually service your car without you physically needing to do that work. And so, because again, the technology, the location of the vehicle, you can track it, you can get remote access to it, you can tell if there's a diagnostic trouble code that's triggered. You actually can be a lot smarter than the way that we do things today, which is like you're driving, you're like, oh shit, my check engine light came on, and now I've got to find the nearest service center. You can be a lot more predictive with the data. You can be a lot more real time, and you can, and more automotive parts of the automotive ecosystem, going back to your initial point, mobility's changed and continues to change a lot, are becoming digital. And so by having a digital platform, we're looking to take advantage of that.
Yeah, it's interesting because that was my idea when I was thinking about the maintenance, that somehow the under the dash also gave indication if there was low tire pressure or maintenance needed, which as I hear you correctly, because if something's being utilized more often, the data is going to be more stable, the maintenance will be more stable. You could actually use it as a value add to the owner by helping them maintain it, not just with the service itself, but just the notifications.
Exactly right. Yeah, you can be much smarter about the alerting, predicting, and then in the future helping with providing those automotive partners and vendors that can service your car reliably and quickly.
Ford famously a couple of years back came out and said, we are not an auto manufacturing company any longer. We are, and they make cars, but they're not an auto manufacturing company, and they are in the mobility business, the transport business, and making cars is just part of that. What have you thought about, and if you have thought about, what have you done to start looking at partnering with some of these manufacturers that are moving away from being seen as manufacturers, so that you can actually enable some of the stuff that you're talking about with some of these vehicles that are coming off the production line now?
Yeah, it's I think that's that's just the way the industry as a whole is going, and certainly Ford's making a splashy statement about it. But in our case, for instance, we have Toyota as an investor and as a partner, and they've been very much on what's called, I think, MaaS or mobility as a service type of business models and innovations, and we've worked closely with them on a number of those. And so, yeah, we see. Look, I think the automotive ecosystem does take a bit longer to evolve, especially with cars, because those long cycle times of R&D. But a lot of what was talked about 3, 4, 5 years ago is actually starting to happen now, because those cars are, notwithstanding chip shortages, COVID, and other delays, are starting to roll off the line.
Yeah.
And what about the community? So, one of the aspects that I see is you're starting to build a community that you can have data on preference of types of vehicles, size of vehicles.
I think we
I think we lost David there. Okay.
Coming back.
There he is. You're back, David. Sort of, kind of.
No, he's gone again. Yeah.
Do you have an idea where he was going to be going with that question?
Can you hear me?
I think so, although he's back. Yeah, we can hear you now.
Yeah, I don't know why Matt keeps taking me off. So anyway, I was saying the community side of that data, just like in sports, you think it's about the event, but it ends up being about the amount of data, especially with fantasy and gambling, that we can acquire. Do you have a roadmap for the enormous value of the data of where people and how they travel and what they travel in?
We certainly have a lot of data, including all of those travel patterns and use cases, what type of cars people are looking for, when and why. And we believe it's immensely valuable data. It's not data that we sell or try to monetize on its own. I mean, for us, we're really using that data to just enhance the service we offer to our customers, and make the platform, that much better, tighten the feedback loops, provide more innovative services to both sides of the marketplace. So, that's really where we use the data. It's certainly, there are other ways of taking advantage of data, but for us, we look at the data that we have on our platform as really being owned by our customers and lent to us in order to use the service. And so we want to safeguard that with, the appropriate level of care and those mechanisms around that.
It's a shared economy. It's a democratized economy.
Yeah.
You have built it over the last decade, so it's not an overnight success. Sam Zaid, founder and executive chairman of Getaround. What an extraordinary idea that also is sustainable, which I love as well. Congratulations. I can't wait to see what's next. I'm going on the app right after this show. So I
Same.
travel too much. I travel too much not to get around. Just put it that way.
Yes.
Getaround.com. Thanks, Sam.
I love it. All right, well, excited to have you guys as
We need to get the
customers.
Beach Boys involved with this little soundtrack in the background here.
Yeah.
Yeah,
All right.
that'd be perfect.
Thanks,
All right.
Sam.
Thanks, Sam.
Thank
Well, from one superpreneur to now an extra superpreneur, Alex Mashinsky, my man, the founder and CEO of Celsius Network. Oh my goodness, I'm so excited to have you here. Alex is a legend when it came to voice over IP. And
VoIP, yeah.
now he's into money over IP, but he's democratizing banking. He's literally taking away all the frustration that I've had for 35 years in banking. I'm fearful of adding up all the wasted fees. I'm a fairly educated person, and I can't believe how I've been manipulated, even cheated by our traditional institutions called banks for so many years. And it's nothing I could do about it, let alone some of the usury practices that have been utilized for 35 years. Alex has created a bank that allows you actually to make money on your money, allows you to securely save your money, and allows you to borrow money when you don't need it and when you need it, which is a rarity. Alex, welcome to Office Hours.
Hey, David. Unbank yourself, not bank. Unbank.
Unbank. He's the unbanker.
There you go. That's
This
great.
is my unbanking friend. And, it's so funny because I was on a stage in New Jersey and someone was talking about Alex and like, this guy's insane. First, he decides he's going to take on the carriers, right? The big AT&Ts of the world. He's going to take them on, and he beat them. So he thought, well, that wasn't big enough. I might as well go after the banks now. And now, when you go after the banks, you start getting into government problems because they don't know what to do, but they make a lot of noise. But Alex, let's give the premise, first of all. You built a bus for yourself, and then everybody jumped on board. That's the best analogy that I've heard.
Yeah.
What was that? What is the bus that you built in the unbanking industry?
Well, look, banks are not your friends, right? They're there to make a profit. They deliver all the profit in those fees that you talked about to their shareholders, right? And on top of that, they also make money with your money. So besides charging you fees, they also make the money that your money should be making, right? Earning yield, compounding, and so on. So, I think the three of us are old enough to remember when Citi or JP Morgan paid us 6 or 7% by just putting money in the checking account,
Yep.
So those days are gone. Right now, you're lucky if you get 0.5%. That's the max you can get from Marcus, which is a Goldman Sachs subsidiary, right? So the question is, how can it be that these guys are earning record profits, right? JP Morgan made $22 billion in profit last quarter, but they can't pay us even 2 or 3 or 4% interest. So what I decided to do is really build a platform that pays you yield for your money by lending your assets out. And like you said, we now have close to 1.2 million customers that have joined us. And we just crossed the $1 billion paid in yield, paid in interest. So we paid more interest than some of the largest banks in the United States, right? And that's just because they pay so little. So I always joke that I built this service for myself, Celsius Network, and then 1 million people showed up and said, "Hey, do you have room for me on the bus?" And we don't even charge a ticket. It's a free ride. You get a free ride here. So
that's awesome.
Now, you've made over $8 billion in loans, let alone the return of the interest side back to the consumer. I saw this, and at first I thought it was a typo, but in listening to you here, Alex, it's kind of like, the reward rate's up to 21%, 21.4%, right? Is that right?
Yeah, that's for the exotic assets, but your dollars, if you turn your dollars into stable coins, that pays 8.8%, which is
8.8.
Yeah, so that's almost 20 times more than your bank, right? It's like 18 times more than your bank. And that's the true cost of money. That's what other people are willing to pay for your dollars or for your stable coins. And all we're doing is we're basically aggregating all of these users. We do large loans, and we basically give most of that yield back to our customers, back to our community. and the community is just phenomenal, right? I mean, they're you know, we're like a movement, right? We're like people are passionate about it because they finally discovered that, wow, I can work hard for my money, but my money can also work hard for me. And then it makes life so much easier because you go from like a debt-driven economy where everybody just spends their money because there's no point saving it with 0.1%. So they just spend their money to a saving economy. And again, we're going from like a Keynesian world to an Austrian economics world. But look, this is about us, our children, right? About having a financial future, having financial freedom. And we only pay interest on digital assets. So you have to own Bitcoin, Ethereum, or stable coins, things like that. But you can actually generate a life-changing income from that.
And you don't have to have millions of dollars to participate. You've democratized it. What's the minimum amount of deposit that you'll take?
There's no minimum. I mean, if you have $50, you can move it over. Again, you have to worry about transaction fees. Like Ethereum right now is like $50. You don't want to. You have to be careful about that. That the transaction fee on the blockchain is not going to cost you more than what you're transferring. But the smallest loan is $100. So if you have at least $200 with Celsius, you can borrow 100, and you'll pay as low as 1% per year interest, right? So it's very, very cheap loans. No income verification, no employment verification, because we do asset-backed lending, so we don't need all of the stuff that banks ask you for. And again, the rates are extremely low. So it's democratizing again access to capital, democratizing, and it's taking all of this out of the banks, right? We just crossed 30 billion in assets under management, 30 billion in 3 years. So that's makes us the fastest growing asset manager in history. No one has ever done that this quickly. And some of the famous guys, manage less money than Celsius these days.
That's, how are you accounting for the volatility of, crypto? It's just, I think blockchain's up around 67,000 today.
Yep.
And it was 28,000 not too long ago. So, I mean, that's huge swing. Ethereum's not too far behind either.
Sure, there's no question that it's volatile, and if you can't take it, right? If you can't sleep at night, then you should not own Bitcoin or Ethereum. The beauty about stablecoin is that they're always $1, right? So you don't take any directional bet, and that's why we have many different asset classes. You don't have to earn yield on Bitcoin. You can earn yield on stablecoins, right? Take your dollars, convert it into USDC, earn 8.8%, right? So you give us $1,000, you're gonna get $88 at the end of the year, right? So, and you still have your dollars. It doesn't matter what Bitcoin did; it went up, it went down, and so on, so on. So, for each person, they have to decide how much risk they're willing to take, right? Do you trust the current economy? Do you trust our banking system? And if you do, great. You don't touch Bitcoin and Ethereum. If you don't trust it, and you say, okay, I got to put 10% of my money in a non-dollar denominated world, then you should buy some Bitcoin, and you shouldn't buy it all at once, thinking, okay, I'm going to catch the best price in the market. Every month you should buy, right? Every month you should buy 1%, and then you average into the asset. Sometimes you buy it at the peak. Sometimes you'll buy it. You look like a genius. You'll be like telling your friends, I bought the bottom at 29,000. Yeah, that's right. So,
and I think you're making a good point that a lot of people, I know you're so well versed in it, that it skips over their head that it's as stable as the US dollar when you buy a stable coin that's based off of the US dollar. So as secure as your normal dollar bank account is with, a Wells Fargo, you can do that within the context of unbanking with Celsius network, but you also can, put a percentage into the more volatile Bitcoin, Ethereum, et cetera, and utilize and play the hedge on America's own economy and system if you want. But there's nothing to say that you couldn't switch all your money into stablecoin, and it's just as secure as a U.S. bank account. Is that correct?
Yeah, so again, we don't issue these assets. We don't sell you the Bitcoin. We don't issue the stable coins. Those are normally issued by trust companies or other companies like Coinbase and others. Our job is just to keep it safe and earn yield, right? So what we do is aggregate all of these users and then issue loans, collect the interest, and pay the interest out. Every Monday, our community gets paid. We pay about $15 million every Monday. And I can tell you, your week is going to look totally different when you wake up in the morning and the first thing in your email is how much interest you earn. And that number actually moves the needle for you. You go, wow, really? I earned this much money? And you don't have to do anything. We do all the work. You get to keep all the interest. Again, like it used to be 30 years ago.
Yeah.
So it's shocking that when I ask people, why don't you demand more from your banks? They look at me like, what? I can't negotiate with my bank. And then I say, well, the banks earn enough money to pay you 5 or 6 or 8%. He's like, no, they don't. The interest rate with the Fed is 0. I'm like, the rate with the Fed has nothing to do with what they can afford to pay. That is the piece that people miss. And they think, well, the banks are barely making it. Record profit for all the banks. Come on, they can afford to pay you. They just choose not to, right? So the assets, look, the stable coins are not FDIC insured, right? It's not the same thing as basically keeping it with the Fed or keeping it in the banking system. But like you said, it's a trust company, so it's basically being held either in treasuries or in cash reserves. Mm-hmm. So that's the main difference. We lend it out. There is some risk associated with us issuing loans. We haven't had any defaults in 4 years, because we're only lending to people who give us assets, right? So you got to give me $2 worth of Bitcoin for me to give you $1 of a loan. So you would say, wait a second, why people need to borrow dollars against their Bitcoin? And the main reason is that's what the rich people do with their stocks and bonds and their real estate. They don't sell it. They borrow against the asset. Why? Because they defer their taxes, right? So if you bought Bitcoin at 10,000, now it's 66,000. You sell it, you owe half of that to the government, right? But if you borrow against it, you pay 1%, and there is no tax event. There's nothing that you need to pay to the IRS. And that's really the main advantage of taking a loan. And when you take a loan, you're actually paying for other people who have given us the assets, right? Because we take their dollars or stable coins and lend them to you. So that's a function we provide.
And Alex, there's a hedge strategy involved. I know we won't get into it here on this show. If you're making 8.8% on your money and you can borrow against it tax-free at 1%, there's an ability to actually create even future margin beyond the tax-free percentage, which, if you live in California, New York, who needs profit when you can get tax-free? So it literally is revolutionizing banking. Last question real quick, and then we have to let you go. On the regulatory side, I know we had a quick discussion because there's a lot of noise out there of different states trying to come up against you, but they really can't, because like you said, you're just holding these assets. You're not actually facilitating anything. So can a state government shut you down?
Yeah, so let's first talk about the worst scenario. Let's say that somebody does have the right to shut us down. The worst scenario is that we have to return the assets to you. So that's not a problem, right? So, but all the states that have requested information from Celsius have basically said, look, you're operating in my state. Can you tell me what you're doing? Send me all your information. And I don't know if you saw, but we recently raised $400 million from two of the world's best investors, CDPQ, which is a Canadian pension fund, and Westcap. And this is after all the regulatory stuff. So if there was any concern about regulators shutting us down, I guarantee you none of these investors would put hundreds of millions of dollars into Celsius. So I understand why regulators want to see this. They, like most of your listeners or viewers right now, are probably saying to themselves, 8.8%, that's too good to be true. So that's why they're asking for that information. They want to verify that we actually earn the yield, that we actually pay it out. And when they see all of that, I think they're going to move on. So we're not worried at all.
And your reputation speaks for itself. I look forward to much more and doing much more and sending more of my stable coin over there. Alex Mashinsky, you're a true entrepreneur, a legend in my book, and I look forward to doing so much more. Please come back. We got more shows. Blaine definitely wants you on his show. I've been bragging about you to him. Founder and CEO of Celsius Network. Quit letting the banks make money on you.
That's right.
If you do things for free, you're the product. Quit being the product. Put your money over into Celsius. Thanks so much. I will see you soon.
I'll see you in Lisbon in 2 weeks.
See you.
Hey, that sounds great, Alex. I'm going to circle back with you myself. Okay.
Sure.
Thank you, Alex. Take care.
Great.
All right, Blaine. I got to jump. I'm going to
jump.
My takeaway of the day. It's dream big. What's your takeaway of the day?
Design big.
Design big. I love you. Thank you so much. Send my love to your wife. Everyone out there, catch me tomorrow. Free training. Thank you, Blaine Bartlett. Learn.blainebartlett.com/LMM. This is David Meltzer. Be kind to your future self and do good deeds. Have a great night.